This is a really important time in the semester because I'm going to lay out two of the major projects that you'll be doing this semester. And while your informative speech is not officially due for your final draft and your final performance until the last week of class, we will be working on both of these speeches most of the semester. Your first drafts of your outline will be due in about 3 weeks, and so it's a good idea to get started on this right away. You might be thinking, how do I do these projects? And I wanted to give you some tips on how to get started on this. So the first thing is to read all of the assigned reading in the lesson, and also to make sure you've watched the lesson videos that I've put up and read my lecture notes about how to do the project. And then the third thing is to read over the guidelines for both the informative and persuasive speech, and you'll find those on the main La Lima page. I wanted to keep them front and center so you'll look at them frequently and make sure you're familiar with their guidelines. And now, number 4, you are ready to start outlining your speeches. So we've been using a journal tool in La Lima in the forums, and we've been using this all semester so far to write about different things and ideas. And so I wanted to talk about how you might use your journal tool to get started with collecting your ideas and outlining your speeches. So one thing you can use your journal tool for is to write down some of the things that you find in the reading that are important, so you'll have them there at your fingertips when you go to write your speech. So since this lesson is over brainstorming and concept mapping, I put a note about brainstorming here, and that's a method that allows us to generate potential topics quickly and to not judge them, just to get them out there on a list. I also noted a couple things about introductions and conclusions, which we'll learn about later in the class. I also noted that some of the videos I watched, like the instructor lesson on narrowing your topic, had a good video on how to choose a persuasive topic. I noticed there was a lesson on how to brainstorm and a lesson on the differences between informing and persuading. And I thought that might be important to understand since we're writing two different types of speeches. And then for some of you who've never outlined before, there is some great material in the lesson on how to indent and use Roman numerals, which is critical to these assignments. The next thing you can use your journal for is to keep track of ideas for speech topics. So as you're walking around during your day and you come across things, you can jot them down. So for example, I went to the grocery store and the clerk said Happy Holidays, and I got upset because I think people should say Merry Christmas. I thought, wow, that might make a nice persuasive speech. Another idea is I watched a show on TV called The Carbonaro Effect, one of my favorite shows, but the magician Michael Carbonaro used a hairless cat to perform one of the tricks, and I thought, what an amazing looking cat. Wouldn't a speech on hairless cats be interesting? There's a couple other ideas I jotted down as well, but use your journal to jot your ideas down. You can also do the brainstorming, which is simply creating a list of as many ideas as you can write down without making any judgment on them. So I might look at my first 3 items, cars, fishing, and mirrors, and think, oh, those are pretty broad, not very interesting, but what we're going to use them for is a starting point to come up with ideas. We're going to concept map each of them. If I think about one of these ideas, for example, mirrors can be pretty interesting, especially if I start talking about psychological elements and the effect that they have on our identity, or maybe how mirrors have been used in storytelling to get important concepts across for self-identity. Before I show you the concept map, I thought I'd show you the basic outline for what we're going to do. So this is our persuasive speech. We're going to have our 5-part introduction, which we don't want to write until we figure our body out. So our body has 2 main points, and I've assigned these to you, so you don't have to come up with them. You're going to have a problem, and you're going to have a solution. And then your conclusion will go at the bottom of your speech. And we'll write that later. So we're going to do a concept map just for the problem portion of our speech. One of the items I had on my list was that I felt like the news apps were censoring the news. And so I thought I'd explore that with a concept map. So simply, you put a circle around the idea that you're exploring, and then you use the lines to show how the other ideas are connected. So I came up with a few ideas. You can do many more than this, or you can go off of any of the circles. So I came up with what is censorship, and when I explored that idea, I thought what the law says about it, how do we define it, and how has it changed. And then I thought another interesting idea relating to the news apps censoring the news is what apps censor the news? Is it Facebook, Parler, Twitter? And of course, I might have to do some research on these to verify this, but these are just ideas that I have as I'm putting my speech together. And then I might think of, well, what would be really interesting is to think, how do these apps censor the news? Do they use algorithms? Are they biased? I watched a movie called The Social Dilemma, so I noted that there because I want to look at it. It had a lot of ideas for how the news was being censored. So you can see that I've taken the ideas off of my concept map and I've put them onto my outline. So I've got main point number 1, which was in a circle, was the news apps are censoring the news, and then I put that first circle here under A. So I have my censorship, my definition, my changes to the definition, and my legal issues. Now I'm going to in the future put my little A's and little B's and put my research there to support that. And also these main points might change as I do some research, but this is a starting point. Saves me a lot of time to do this kind of research. My second bubble that I explored was what apps are censoring the news. And the third bubble was how apps censor the news, how they do it. And you'll notice here that I'm going to add in my conclusion and my introduction here when I finish getting my body all together. Okay. So now we're going to do the same thing for an informative speech. So I took the topic dogs off of my brainstorming list. Now the informative speech is different because I did not give you the main points that you're going to talk about. So you need to come up with them. And you need to come up with 2 to 5 main points on your own for your speech. And so from dogs, I went to types of working dogs, and I thought working dogs would be really interesting to talk about. And I had the companion and service dogs, like the dogs for the people that are with disabilities, and dogs that do everyday tasks for people. I had police dogs, which I didn't explore any further. I had medical dogs, which can detect things like seizures and cancers and COVID-19. And then I had search and rescue dogs who can rescue people from caves, snowy mountain avalanches, and combat zones in war. And I thought these were some ideas that I could maybe put into an outline. So let's look at that outline and see what it looks like. So here's my informative outline that I've put together off of my concept map. And you can see here that I have my 5-part introduction, which we'll add later. And then I've got my 3 main points, my search and rescue dogs, my companion and service dogs, and my medical dogs. From my bubble on search and rescue dogs, I've added in my mountain and snow dogs, my cave rescue dogs, and my combat rescue dogs. And again, I will be putting in my little 1s and little 2s here with the actual research and stories about, I might have the story about Butch, a dog that was in a war zone and how he rescued someone. I might have a statistic there about how many people Butch had rescued in combat, or how many people dogs in general rescue. My second bubble was companion dogs and service dogs, and my third bubble was medical dogs that were used to detect different diseases. And I've put cancer, seizures, and COVID here, but it could be other things. There's dogs that do other things medically. But of course, I can't cover everything, so I have to limit it. Remember that this is an 8 to 10 minute speech. The persuasive speech is a 5 to 7 minute speech, so we don't have a lot of time to get all of this in. our introduction and conclusion will take somewhere between 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes to put those together. And we still just have our keyword outline without our research added in. And we'll learn about that in the next lesson. But I hope this helps you to get your speeches ready and get you started. When you're done writing them in your journal, you can upload them on the main LaLima page so that I can grade them once you've turned them in. Have a nice day, and looking forward to hearing your speech.